Okay, guys, I'm going to show you how you can take your Word document and go ahead and copy it and import it and create content in your electronic portfolio using Google Sites. So imagine that this is your document, your Word document that you've created, your chapter summaries, and I'm just going to use the same one over and over. So just pretend like the content is changing. So first, what you're going to want to do is take that Word document and you're going to want to select all the content. So I did a Control A and I'm going to copy it. So I did a Control C, or I could right click and say copy. So we've got all that content and now we're in Google. So the first thing you're going to need to do is create a Google account. And once you have the Google account set up, you're going to create your electronic portfolio. We will have a single electronic portfolio, a Google Sites, that you will use throughout the entire program. Most people take 10 classes, and in every single class that you take, you will be adding artifacts to your portfolio so that you can demonstrate your mastery of the content. So if you ever go to interview or you're up for a promotion, you can use that as artifacts or information or proof of the stuff that you've done in the program. So the first thing I'm going to do in Google is to come over here. I like to access my drive by going to, I will do a new one here. To show you how I like to access it. I go to Google and I like to access it. They call this the waffle. Clicking on the waffle and coming down and going right to your drive. I like to do everything through my drive. I find it a more consistent um, uh, interface to do it. There are other ways to access this, but I like to do it through the drive. And then I'm going to click on new and I'm going to click on a folder to save this information. So because I wanted it at the top, I'm going to say EP demo for you guys today, and I will go ahead and create my folder because I'm a folder freak and like to put everything in a folder. So we'll go ahead and open up that folder, and then we're going to create bear with me, we are going to create a Google Sites website, which you will use as your portfolio. So you don't see an option here for Google Sites. You need to go down here to more, and you go straight across and then down, and then click on Google Sites, and that will create a portfolio that you will use the rest of the time in the program. So you will create a folder and then subfolders as far as hierarchy and websites for each and every class. So those are under pages. So because we want to create one for EDT-8110, you click on pages and come down here to the bottom, you click on the plus, and we will do a new one for EDT-8110. And we'll go ahead and create it. And this is the top hierarchy for this particular class. And we want to have a similar look and a similar feel throughout this entire class. You can change the look and the feel as you go throughout the program in different classes, but for each class you want to have a same look and same feel. You want to have what we call is consistency or branding. So we can go over here to themes, and you can click on different themes and different options to get a different look and a different feel. And we're going to go ahead and just do this one for now. So I will go ahead and do that, and going to go back to my pages. Now we will go ahead, and because we want the same look and the same feel on every page, we're going to go ahead and click the three ellipses, ellipsi or ellipsis. You can get options within the Google, and we're going to right click. We're going to click on the three ellipses and go ahead and click on duplicate page, and call this week one, because you will have something to add each and every week. And we'll click on done. And we want it to be a child page of the class. So you just slowly point to it and you drag it and you drop it right on the EDT 8110 folder, which is going to make that a child page. So we will come over here and you can see where it's added it as a child. It's a lower hierarchy. So we're going to go to week one. Now it doesn't look too much different now because we have duplicated it, but we will go ahead and make a change. So I'm going to double click, which gets the properties wheels to pop up, and I'm going to click on text option, and I'm going to call this week 1. So that you can see that this is different. And I'm going to make this look a little bit different. I will go ahead and change it from normal text to a title. I'm going to change the background to an emphasis 2, and I'm going to go ahead and center that so that it looks a little bit different. And there we have it. And so now we're going to start adding our text from the Word document from the chapter. Instead of having to retype it in here, you definitely don't want to do that. That's too time consuming. So whenever you want to add anything to the web pages, you just double click on the pages. You get the options wheel that pops up. You can add images, embed text, upload from Drive. In this case, again, it's the text, and we copied all that text before. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste, and there you go. So for the first week, that's all you have to do. So when we came over here and we click on home and you go to EDT-8110, click the little down arrow in week number 1. There you have it. Bear with me. It takes a minute for this to take sometimes. So we'll do this again. Hold on. Week number 1, there we go. It just takes a minute to click in. And there you have all the content that we put in, the chapter summaries, and everything else like that. And the goal of the first week is just to allow you to begin to get familiar with Google Sites, to create the Google Sites, to duplicate pages, to get you started. Now what we'll do in week 2 is we'll do a little bit more in Google Sites, and in week 3 we'll do a little bit more. So let's keep going. We are going to go to week 2. And you want to duplicate it so you have this consistent look and feel. So I'm going to click the little down arrow and I'm going to duplicate that page. And we want this to say week number 2. And actually, there's a few things I forgot to do, and I'll show you how to do that. And there we have week 2. Now, it looks the same because we duplicated it. So we're going to go ahead and make sure we're on week 2. You see it's underlined there, so you know you're in the right spot. So we're going to change it to week 2. And the content in here that we copied over from the Word document is the same from the week before. So we need to delete that out of there, and that's super simple to do. These are added as text blocks. So we need just to click here, and over here there's an option just to delete that. So pretend like it's the week 2 Word document and you just copy the content from week 2. You come back over here, and whenever you want to add something to a web page, you remember what you do? You always double click on the web page. So we're going to double click. It gets the wheel, the add wheel that comes up. We click on text and we will paste in the content from week 2. Now, there's something I forgot to show you last week. If you want to come up here to the web page title, and then say for week 2, it's going to be chapters 3, 4, 5. And then we can delete this out. If you're uncomfortable having your name published, because this will be in the public, feel free to use a shortened name. Don't use your name at all if you don't want to. A lot of people now are so comfortable with their stuff being on the website, it doesn't bother them, but you do what you're comfortable with. Now in week number 2, we're going to start doing a little bit more. And what we're going to do is begin to make these web pages accessible for individuals with disabilities. Now if somebody they're blind and they're using a speaking browser, they need the web page to be able to be scanned so that they can scan it by headline. So imagine when you're reading the newspaper, you don't sit down and read it from the top to the bottom. You scan the headers. And so the computer needs to be able to identify what's a top header, what's a next header, so that it can scan hierarchically, and so then the blind person can say, oh, that's an article I want to read, stop and read it. And these are called cascading style sheets. Google is amazing. It does a really good job at this. So we need to differentiate this text to say it's not regular text, it's a header, so that the speaking browser can do that. And here we have these headers right here, but it's a paragraph function. So we need to make sure that the regular text is not in line or in the same paragraph. So we will make these changes. So this chapter 3 is a top level hierarchy. So we'll come back over here. It's not the title, which we used up above, but it is a heading. And then down here below, the chapter summary is not a header, but it's a subheader. And so the computer knows when it's reading the document to the individuals that it's a header, and it will read it first to the blind user. So these are all subheaders that go under that chapter, again making the regular text on the next line. These are all subheaders. Now as I scan through and I come to a chapter, we said that was a higher level hierarchy, so we'll do a header there. And then for the subheaders, they are a little bit lower hierarchy, and so we keep going through. Go through your entire document and do this until all the headers are changed, and you do that from start to finish. So that's what we do in week 2. Now it's going to look something like this. To publish it so that it's viewable to the public on your websites, you have to do this each and every week, or I won't be able to see it, because when it's in the working format, that's still private to you. But to make it available to me to grade, your instructor to grade, and people on the outside, you have to come up in the upper right hand corner and click on publish. That says, yep, you're good to go. And it's going to ask you to give it some kind of a name. So we will give it a name, and you can see it's going to keep saying red until it's already taken. But I will keep going, and nope, it's already taken. I will try 8110, and that's not been taken. So we're good to go there. But I don't want to do this for this class, for this demonstration. I'll use a number afterwards. So that's right here. That's going to be the website for the overall website, and then each individual website will have additional information, and you need to post the individual URL to the page that's getting graded to receive credit for that assignment. So you click on publish, and it takes just a minute to send that information. And down here it says your site has been published successfully. You always want to click on view and do a quality check. Instructional designer should always do, so you can see the different headers that are available right now. And this URL right here, you're going to right click and copy it, and that's the one that you will post in your pilot discussion thread along with a self-reflection to get graded. And so that's how you publish week 2. Now in week 3, we do even additional information. So continuing with what we've done so far, click on the ellipses to the right of week 2, and I will say duplicate page, and this is going to be week 3, and click on done. Takes just a minute to completely duplicate that page, so you have an exact duplicate to make sure that you have this consistency in branding. And we are on week 3 page, and you can see that it's selected. So a couple of things we need to do. The content is still from the content from the last week, so we need to delete that out of there. And we'll go ahead and you want to get the Word document, and imagine this is for week 3. We'll go ahead and copy this information and come in here, and this is going to be for week 3. And to put content on a page, remember, you double click, select the text, and we will paste that in there. So imagine in week 3 it's going to be chapters 6, 7, and 8. So I've got the content from my example, so it doesn't match up because I'm using that same example. Now what we're going to do this time is continue to make it even more accessible for individuals with disabilities, but we're also going to amp up the readability or the look of the page. And so one of the things you can do is begin to chunk up the content and add images. And you need to chunk it up into its smallest bite-sized bit to be able to change colors, to change backgrounds, to add images to small areas. And so this is a little time consuming, but it's worth it, and you do need to do it in in week 3. So the smallest bit there is going to be that chapter 3. Well, we'll change it here. Imagine that's chapter 6. And so the quick, and I don't want to say too quick, but the easiest way to do this is just to leave that there and copy all the other content and right click and cut it out of there. And you're going to take all that extra space out of there, and we're going to paste the remaining document back in, and we're just going to keep chunking it up, because that will leave each little bite-sized bit of information in its own little text block, which gives us the ability to change colors, backgrounds, add images just to that area. So we want to add what's remaining. I will paste that in there and come back. It's missing what we cut out there before, but we just want to leave the next section, which is this content summary. And so we will cut out everything else after that. So I will drag down, and I'll do just a few of these to give you an idea. So it gets a little funky as we do this. Okay, hold on. Okay, we want to leave content summary, and we'll cut everything else out. Okay, so right click, cut. Cut it out. It does have an extra space there, and I'm going to double click, put T, and we'll paste what's remaining there. And let me do 2 more just so you get the idea. The next thing, so we have chapter 6 is in its own little text block. We have content summary in its own little text block. And now we want to do connections to personal life or field in its own little text block. So I will cut everything else out. It deselects it if I'm not really careful. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to right click and cut, get rid of that extra space, double click, and it's got its own little text block. And now we can see we have a text block for chapter 6, one for content summary, one for connections, one for suggestions. And I'll do one more just so you get the idea. Cut it out of there, get rid of the extra space, double click here. And in this case, the next chapter, and for this one it would be chapter 7. So I'm gonna pretend like that's chapter 7. And the smallest bite size of information would be that title right there. So I will cut the rest out of there, get rid of that space, and double click here and paste the remaining. So you can see that you continue. So it's a little time consuming to do this, but it's better than retyping. We have every small bit or byte of information in its own little text block. So you may be wondering, okay, why would I do that? Here's why. Here's why you took the time to do it. Because you can begin to make choices for formatting. So for chapter 6, since that is a header, we can do things like, and we do need to, you are required to change that from normal text to make it accessible for individuals with disabilities to heading like we did in the week before. But in addition to that, in Google, you have the ability to come over here and select a little bit of a background. So I know that doesn't seem real clear, but that's kind of got a gray background, and you can even center it if you want to. So it really makes it pop out. So I'll come down here to chapter 7. I'm going to change that from normal text to heading. I'm going to give it a gray background, and I'm going to center it right there. So it really's got it makes it much more readable. Now, the other thing in week 3 that you need to do is, well, you need to continue to change the headers. So I'm going to make sure that the content summary is on a different line. That is a subheader. So you need to change it from normal text to subheading. And when the speaking browser is going through this, it will read all the headers first, and then it can go into the subheaders. So again, connections here, put that in the next line. Select the text. It's not normal text, it's a subheader, and so it changes that and we'll read it. Now the next thing we're going to do is add images. So if I want to add images just to particular sections, I can do that, and that's why it's nice to chunk it up. So I can drag these text blocks in, and I can go ahead and add, double click in this area, and let's say I want to add an image. You can add an image in a couple of different ways. You can search for it within Google. So if I want to search for something about learning, it adds it. Or if I want to go to your Google Drive for images that are saved. And there's even one other way to add an image, and I'll show you that in a minute. So if I want to add this image, let's say we want to do it, I'll go ahead and select it. And there we have it, and I can size it, make it smaller, bigger. But to make this accessible for somebody that has a disability that's blind, they can't see that image. So you need to click on the image. You need to go into the properties that pops up above it, and we need to add what's called alt text, so the speaking browser can read that to the visually impaired individual. So if I click on the 3 ellipses and it says add alt text, you want to add a 1 or 2 short summary of what that image is representing. So in that case, it would be a man thinking. So you want to make sure that you capitalize the first letter, that it's a very, very short. You don't want a whole phrase in there. And you go ahead and click on apply. And so for all the images in week 3, you need to chunk up the content, you need to change the headers, you need to go in and add images, and with the images you need to go in and add the alt text. And as I showed you a few minutes ago, you need to go ahead and publish this when you're all done with all that, and come down here to view. And there we have it. We have an image, and you can, and the nice thing about chunking this up is you can come in and add an image for every chunk or bite size of information. So you could have even chunked up the paragraphs, which I think would have been even a nicer look, so that that paragraph over here would have filled the entire page. And in looking at that, I would have gone back and made that change. And this is the URL for week 3. You would have copied that and posted that in your pilot discussions, along with a self-reflection, and also change the properties of that URL so that it launches in a new window. And I have specific instructions about how to do that in Pilot, so make sure you do that. So that's how you create your Google Sites electronic portfolio. We'll be doing a little bit on this every single week in every single class, and then when you're done, you'll have a pretty robust portfolio that you can use when you go on job interviews or job promotions. So that's it. Good luck, and if you have questions, let me know.